Welcome back to the OurView Podcast. On today's episode, I welcome my guest, life coach, author, and patient advocate Tom Seaman. Join our conversation as we discuss his dystonia diagnosis and the importance of not being positive, but being honest when experiencing chronic pain. So thank you again for joining me for this episode of the OurView Podcast. I would like to introduce everyone to my guest for this episode, Tom Seaman. And we are going to have a great discussion. I'm looking forward to sharing all of this information with you all, and just looking for a very, very great episode here. So thank you again, Tom, for joining me on today.
Thanks, Arthur. It's a pleasure to be here.
So can you just give a description of yourself? Tell us about yourself. Who are you, and what your any information you want to share is appropriate in this time. So just share who you are and what you would like people to know about you.
Wow. It's always a tough question to answer because where do you begin with something like that? Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of a regular guy living somewhat of an irregular life. And I know that's kind of ambiguous, but what I mean by that is I don't really know what regular and normal is, especially in these times, as we were just discussing with 2020 being the way it was, and who knows what's going to be facing us down the road here in upcoming months and years. And so every day I'm a different person. In terms of my health, in terms of my social life, in terms of my business and my work and my passions and my interests, they're always changing. And as you and I were both talking a little while ago about birthdays, I have a birthday coming up. I'll be turning the big 50 next week. And, it's a big number, I guess. For me, it's just another kind of a day that I don't plan to make much ado about. But it kind of marks for me a bit of a timetable, I guess, is maybe a good way to say it, because 20 years prior, when I was 30, my life completely changed when I developed a chronic health condition called dystonia, which I'll share with you a little bit more about that. But prior to that, I was involved in several different health education businesses. So after graduating college in the early 90s, I graduated with a degree in elementary education and psychology, and I was going to go and get involved and be a teacher. But I really wasn't, as much as I love kids, I wasn't really jived about working in the school system. And I got an opportunity to work with some really wonderful people in a patient education company that was tailored for chiropractors and chiropractic patients. So I did that for about 6 years. And then I kind of got this desire to get back to school. And I really wanted to become a counselor. And I wanted to either work with children or work in a school, or perhaps open up a private practice working as a counselor, and maybe some social work type of a thing. And when I began going to school, prior to my first semester of graduate school, I began to have these symptoms of my neck and my head involuntarily moving, and it was tilting and turning and twisting, and I had no idea what was wrong. And this was around 2001, the summer of 2001, and I was in the middle of just beginning graduate school. So I went to some doctors to see what was going on, and nobody knew what it was, and it gradually got worse and worse and worse to where I became pretty much disabled to the point of not being able to do daily activities. And what I mean by that is very, very difficult to one, even just get out of bed because I was in so much pain, and I was having such severe involuntary muscle contractions. And I was difficulty showering, brushing my teeth, shaving, eating, walking. I spent most of my day laying on the floor. So my life went from being a very active business person to a very active student to a very active athlete to someone within 8 months was literally floor ridden. And so I bring this all up kind of, that wasn't really an answer to your question, I don't think, but I bring this up because I'm thinking of a time frame now of how my life has changed and how I have changed and who I was and who I've become. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question in a different way, who am I? Like I said, I'm just a regular guy living an irregular life. And I say that because of the health challenges I live with. But I'm not married, don't have kids. I have a wonderful girlfriend of almost 3 years now. She's just the love of my life, angel sent from above. Wonderful family, great support system. I'm a pretty simple guy. I like to keep myself interested in the things that my body and my mind are capable of doing and get passionate and excited about doing those things. So I'm into, I'm not really able to involve myself in athletics and sports like I once was at a very high level years ago. So I enjoyed landscaping, not anything intense, but I like getting out in my yard and working in with plants and flowers and those kind of things. I enjoy photography. Don't do any kind of traveling or anything right like that. I'm really content where I am. I live in a beautiful part of the country in southeastern North Carolina, right near a beach where people come to vacation. So I have that right at my doorstep, which is wonderful. So I enjoy doing those things. I enjoy writing. I'm on the cusp of finishing my second book right now. I keep an active blog going. I'm involved with volunteer work within the community of people that live with chronic pain and dystonia, the condition that I have. What else? There's probably more I'm not thinking of, but
yeah, that's all great.
Someone who's just trying to make the most of my life and who I am and trying to figure out more about who I am and what I enjoy. But I'm a pretty upbeat guy, and despite some rough challenges that I have, and I'm just really, like I said, I'm going to be 50 soon, and that's a milestone, I guess, and makes you think and wonder and reflect, and also look towards the future. So I'm kind of an interesting point in my life right now.
Yeah, definitely. And that was all, I love asking that question because I get such a wide range of answers, and I love every last one of them just because it's important. It shows how do you see yourself, saying how family and your support system were important to you, your girlfriend. And it's, that's what really matters in life for me, for sure. And I know my support system and family and friends are really what keep me going, help keep me going for sure. So I appreciate, I definitely appreciate your answer.
Well, thank you. I know I went all over the place with that. It's always a tough question to answer. It's kind of like when you meet somebody and they say, "So what do you do?"
Right.
And for some reason, we kind of always default to what we do for our job, even though that wasn't what was asked. And there was a time when I couldn't work, and people would say, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Not a whole lot. I don't know." So I decided to start answering that question differently. And so people say, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I love to take pictures. I love to, like I was saying before, I love doing work with plants and doing outdoor, landscaping. I love to, whatever it might be." And then I say, they said, "No, I mean, what do you do for work?" So I'll add that on at the end versus that being the focus of my conversation, the focus of my answer. So I get, like you just said, an interesting, varied response when people, or rather looks on people's faces when I respond that way versus, "Well, what do you do for a living?" And that's not what that's what they're asking without actually saying it, but that's where we default in our minds because that's just how we think.
So you mentioned that you were diagnosed with dystonia. Can you give us a better understanding of what dystonia is and how it has impacted your life since your diagnosis?
Sure. So dystonia is a neurological movement disorder. It's the third most common movement disorder after Parkinson's disease and essential tremor. The symptoms are varied, but the primary thing that happens is that muscles will involuntarily contract, which will cause muscles to contract and spasm and twist and turn. These are terms that we often use to describe how it feels and how it looks. It'll twist and turn muscles. It'll cause awkward postures, awkward movements. For some people, it causes a tremor. In addition to all the things I mentioned, for some people, it may just be a tremor. It may just be a twitching or a turning of the muscles. It may just be contraction and pain that's not even visible. There are a lot of people that have what we call an invisible disease or invisible illness, where you can't actually see the symptoms, but in the inside, you can certainly feel them. And, with various tests, you can certainly see some of the, that it's actually there. So it manifests in many different ways, but the main characteristics is involuntary muscle contractions that are either sustained, which means that they're constant, so they're never ever going away, or they are intermittent and coming back. They'll appear and then they'll disappear. They may appear during certain activities or be more intense during certain activities. But like the other movement disorders, it's involuntary movements that the brain is consciously not telling the body to do. In my case, it affects my neck, so it's called cervical dystonia, but it can affect any part of the body or multiple parts of the body. So there are lots of different categorizations and names for the different forms of dystonia.
Yeah, that's
kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting when you said the twists and turns, and you said that's how you use it to describe it, and I really got a good visualization of twists and turns. And how long ago were you diagnosed with this?
My symptoms began in the summer of 2001, and then I self-diagnosed sometime in early January or sometime in early 2002. It's roughly January, February, and then I went to a neurologist and they confirmed the diagnosis, which was roughly that same time. And in my case, at that point, it had gotten to be so severe where, just as another visual, my head and neck were turned to the right and tilted towards my right shoulder, and they were locked in that position. And while they were also locked in that position, they were also at the same time contracting and turning whenever I made any kind of movement, or even when I was sitting still. So it was never-ending contractions. So if you can visualize, if you've ever experienced a Charlie horse, the pain that comes with the Charlie horse, either in your hamstring or in your calf, that's similar to the way it feels for a lot of people that have these muscle contractions in other parts of their body that are due to dystonia. And for some people, that never goes away. So if you could imagine experiencing a Charlie horse or a cramp of any kind in any part of your body and having it never go away, that's what a lot of people with this condition experience. That's how intense it can be. So the pain that can often come with it is absolutely brutal. And the pain I experienced was unlike anything I ever knew existed. It was above and beyond anything. And I experienced a lot of injuries because I was involved with sports quite a bit and had a lot of injuries and just aches and pains from playing. They paled in comparison to the pain that comes with dystonia. It was beyond words. It was intense pain.
Wow.
Very common symptom for a lot of people. Probably the most common symptom is pain.
Yeah, and that's a good segue actually to our next topic here. How are there ways to manage the pain, or are there ways that you found that made the pain easier to deal with, or is it just something that you had to let pass as it whenever it chose to pass?
Yeah, it's I've found a lot of different ways to help manage the pain, but it took a while to figure out what would help me the most. So And that's the thing about this condition, like a lot of conditions, that there's no cookie approach to treating and managing pain. In general, just pain. But if you want to take this particular condition specifically, highly variable results, highly variable symptoms and results from various treatments and therapies. So for me, it's been a combination of, and I can list so many things, but a combination of medications, a very targeted movement therapy type of a program, which involves stretching, exercises, specific targeted exercises, massage. I've gotten acupuncture, which has been helpful at times. Various trigger point tools and other therapeutic devices like that. TENS units, PEMF units, ice, heat, a lot of rest, mindfulness, meditation, and breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation. Nutrition has been a big thing as well to keep the inflammation down. Wow, I can just keep going on and on and on of the different things. And the thing about it is it's changed for me over the years what has helped the most. So early on, it may have been one thing when it was more severe than what it is right now. But what it finally came to be for me was it became a lifestyle. So I had to find out the things through trial and error. And I really like to say trial and success, because we try things until we find what works. And then hopefully
you find something that works.
When we do, and it's successful and you stick with it. And anything you find, even if it helps 1%, just make that part of your lifestyle the best you can. So that's what I did. And I have just this long list of things that, much more than I just shared, actually, because some of them just seem really minor, but some of them are even emotional things, and dealing with how I communicate with my pain, which is, something took me a long time to figure out how to do, and learning how to accept that this is how things were, to learn how to reduce stress and the impact stress had on me, dealing with other people and various forms of toxicity in my life. So it's not just dealing with it from a physical aspect of medical treatments and alternative treatments. It's also how do I deal with the world? How do I deal with my thoughts and my feelings and people and manage how I do day-to-day activities and things. So it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of become a lifestyle to kind of talk to it. And that's kind of, again, kind of ambiguous, but to talk to it, meaning like, so what do you need right now? I ask myself, what does my body need right now? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to go and change my environment and go for a drive and go, wherever it might be? And do I need to talk to somebody? Do I need to just close my eyes and lay down and go take a nap, or just breathe? Or do I need to get out and get some sunshine? Or I need to, whatever it might be. So I talk to myself and ask myself, what do I need right now in this moment to feel better? And that has reduced stress. That has reduced anxiety. That has also reduced the fight against what I'm dealing with. And a lot of us fight adverse situations and adverse feelings, which to me is detrimental, because, to anyone it's detrimental, because it increases stress hormones, it increases anxiety, it increases anger, fear, etc. And it creates a situation in the body where it's physiologically unable to relax and repair and heal. And so I've had to learn to come to terms with, this is the way my life is. And at whatever stage of this condition that I've had, which again changes every day, and I had to come to terms with that and accept the fact that some days I can do more, some days I can do less, some days I need to use more ice and more heat and more massage and more this and more that, or less of this or less of that. And I need to focus more on me. I may need to cancel appointments or schedule social events I may need to pull away from. So what do I need right now to be the best me for others?
Yeah, but I love that you said, what do I need right now? Like, what is it that I can do, or what is it that my body needs right now? Because as you just mentioned, that can change. Sometimes, like you said, you might need more heat, you might need more ice. It's what is it that will help in this moment? And I think a big thing, a topic that we discussed when we were planning this conversation was emotions and how emotions can impact the way that you respond to your illness, your pain. And I am such a believer in that for sure. How the
Mhm.
emotions, how your emotions can trigger certain things and increase certain feelings of pain and discomfort in your body. And I mentioned to you that I read your article, Don't Be Positive, Be Honest. And that
Mhm.
article really hit me because uh, it's not that in my life, I have shared on the podcast, I share with family and friends and people who know me. I have discomfort pretty much all the time. My back, my legs, something is always aching or something. Um, and it's not that I don't go around and say like, oh yeah, my back is hurting today. It's it's really bad. And to but then I'm also not overly positive about it either. It's like it's not no, everything's fine. And it's like, no, I'm a little sore today, but I acknowledge it. And then I just
Mhm.
really keep going and just figure out how to lessen that discomfort, lessen that pain. And one of the paragraphs that I wanted to share with people from that article that you wrote, it says also also critical is to not get too high or too low emotionally. So the way we
Mhm.
characterize life events is very important. Be as even keeled as possible. An aroused nervous system cannot heal, which is why we must calm our minds. If you want to fight something, fight the desire to give up on yourself during tough times by viewing your obstacle as a challenge to overcome, which will change your mindset and reduce the negative toll reactions to life events you have on your health. Like that was, I read that and I said, wow. It makes so
Mhm.
much, it seems so simple and it makes so much sense all at the same time. And it's at the same
Mhm.
time, it's also so difficult for people to do. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit more about uh, how emotions play a role uh, in your overcoming of or working through dealing with your chronic illness and pain?
Yeah. For a long time, I did not deal with it emotionally well at all. I in the early years, do you mind me going back that far if it's okay? Because
Oh,
there's a
that's
reason I
fine.
wanted to connect because of the in comparison, and also because I also want to speak to those who are listening that maybe at that point I was where they're just so desperate and helpless and hopeless feeling as I was for a long time, and how my thinking was back then. Not to say that just if you change your thoughts, your life's going to completely change. It's there's got to be more to it, but that's a huge component for that. But back when I was really hit hard with this, and I literally, and I tell people this, and it's sometimes hard to believe, I literally lived on my floor. And what I mean by that is the pain was such that, and the contractions and spasms in my neck and my shoulders and my back were so intense that the pain made it too difficult for me to sit up for more than say 10 minutes. I had to literally lay down, and even laying down didn't alleviate all the pain. I would roll around as if I was being beaten almost and trying to avoid the beating because I was just being tortured by this outside force, it felt like. And I just didn't know what to do or how to function. And so I was so bitter. I was so angry. I was so resentful. I was so filled with grief about how my life had totally gone from being this active, fully functional person to this person in so much pain who couldn't do basically anything. And I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. And so um, I I finally, I'm not one who likes to use medication or anything, but I finally said I need some medications, and I did, and that helped me feel a little bit better, which made my mind feel a little bit better, and emotionally feel a little bit better because I felt like it'd be a little bit more functional and a little bit more meant, not a whole lot. I could sit up for half an hour versus 10 minutes. Um, but then I found alcohol, and alcohol became a huge uh, self medicating tool for me, and to the point of basically drinking myself drinking for like 5 or 6 years and having a ridiculously horrible diet that was basically for the sake of comfort, to deal with the emotional pain that I couldn't figure out, and as well as the physical pain. And I ended up putting on 150 pounds. So I went from this very athletic 180, 185 pound guy to about 330 or more. And I have since lost all that weight. But during that period of time, I didn't really feel like I had a purpose on this earth. And so I thought I didn't have the guts to take my life. So I had to find a way to kind of get through every single day. And that was kind of my means for doing that. So back then my mindset was all about just how do I get through the day? And that was the way I did it, which was not a healthy way to do it. When I changed those habits, I began to study more and learn more about the mind and how the mind works, and about emotions and the emotions I was experiencing. And I began to talk with different people, and some were just the people that were living with the same condition and living with pain. And some people were some of them were professionals, so therapists I would talk to, and get better idea of what it was that I was experiencing physically as well as emotionally, and how the emotions were impacting me, because I was filled with so much anger. Even after all the drinking stopped and all of the poor eating and everything, and I lost all the weight, and I began to get better control of my symptoms via a lot of different therapies and things I was utilizing, I was still grieving the life that was gone. And I knew I had to make the switch and this is something that Robin Roberts, she's a reporter for ESPN and has been a reporter for a lot of other news stations and things. She had cancer, and she said, turn your mess into a message. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity to share that with someone who ran a Dystonia organization, and showed him what I'd been through and everything. He said, would you mind sharing your story with my readers? And I wrote an article, and it was in his magazine. And all of a sudden, I didn't realize how, in writing that article, it made me really kind of face myself and what I had been going through. And I began to think differently. And I began to work on dealing with my anger, my grief, my depression, my anxiety, resentfulness, bitterness, etc. And the more I did that, the more I began to calm down my nervous system. So I was doing breathing exercises. I was doing meditative type things. I was really working on as much mindfulness type behavior and thinking as possible. And the more I did that, the more at ease I felt emotionally, and the more at ease I felt physically, in addition to all the other things I was doing to help with the physical symptoms, as I'm still doing to this day. But the more I fought against what was, which was pain, anxiety, depression, fear, isolation, and blah, blah. I mean, the list is endless of what I was going through. The more I fought being that, fought that reality, the worse my symptoms became. So I said, I have to stop fighting this. I have to learn to embrace this. What can I do to make the best of a difficult situation is what I began saying. And that's what I kind of not mantra, but kind of the words I go by now is, how do I make the best of a difficult situation? How can I be in the mindset of taking action? Like we were talking earlier, what can I do right now to change how, what do I need right now for myself to feel better? And I began to be more mindful in that way. And I learned how to change my reactions into responses. So rather than being this visceral gut reaction type person to the world around me, as well as what I was physically and emotionally experiencing, I began to step back, take a breath, think about it, and be more responsive versus reactive. And that made a huge difference. And so, again, I'm going to go back to saying this fighting. When we're filled with anger, your stress hormones go through the roof, and the body cannot heal. And that's why I say to be, as in that little paragraph you read, is we need to learn to be as even keeled as possible emotionally. And so when something really good happens, enjoy the moment. When something really bad happens, be careful about getting too low. So try and maintain stability with your emotions the best we can. So too high and too low can sometimes be somewhat damaging. So we have to be very careful about how we categorize things and how we're fighting against things that we don't like. And my belief is that we have to, whatever it might be, we have to face it, to embrace it, to erase it. And that's what I began doing. And that's what really has been the key for me to get through the really, really tough times and whatever hits me nowadays. And I've been hit with some serious stuff in the last 5 or so years. And I've had to look within and just deal with everything one at a time.
The face it, to embrace it, to erase it. That was, that's great. Wow. When you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so good. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so it's really, that was, yeah, you definitely answered the question for sure. I think as I mentioned, it's living with something that causes pain constantly or almost constantly. It's hard to, we always, you always hear things like, oh, well, there's no sense in complaining, or nobody wants to hear about you complaining. And so you automatically try to keep things upbeat and keep it positive, positive attitude, and put the positivity out into the world to the people that you encounter. But it's also so very important to be honest about what you're feeling, what you're dealing with. And like you said, you have to face it and to embrace it and then erase it. So it's you can't, if you're ignoring it or acting like it doesn't exist, I think is it can be very detrimental to your healing in a way. So I appreciate
and I think
that
there's
answer.
A difference between, thank you. And thank you very much. I think that there's a difference between complaining and sharing. So, we can go on and moan and groan about all the problems. And we all know people who do this, I'm sure. And some of us may be these people. I know I was at one point. But I work as a life coach now. And I've been talking with clients for the last 8-9 years now, all over the world. And a lot of them, I'll ask them, so how you feeling? And well, I got this and I got that, but I don't want to talk, I'm just being so negative. And I said, no, you're being honest. You're sharing with me how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And if you're moaning and groaning about everything all the time, and you're playing this, and you fall into this, what I call the victim mentality, where it's just, why me? Why this? Why that? That's complaining. That's not looking for solutions. That's not looking for answers. That's not looking for a way out. That's allowing that's actually getting you more trapped in that place. And some of us need to get trapped in order to get out. So we need to get lost sometimes in order to find our way. So people say, well, I'm at a crossroads right now. And I say, awesome, you've got 4 options. So imagine if you ever saw the movie Castaway, at the end of the movie, here's Tom Hanks sitting at the middle of, I don't know, Kansas, Oklahoma, somewhere, on these dirt roads. He's got, I can go this way. I got north, south, east, west. I'm at a crossroads. He didn't know where to go, but he had 4 options. And so when we start complaining, we don't see options. When we share honestly how we're feeling, and we then go, well, what do I do next? We have north, south, east, west, and we have options, 4 or more options. And that's the way that I think change our habit of thinking of complaining and getting stuck in that mindset of why me victim mentality to one of making change. How can I do something different today to make things better? That's different, I think.
Yeah, that's a great analogy to use with the Castaway reference with at the crossroads, and just people see the crossroads as like what do I do? What do I do? And like you said, you have at least 4 options there at a crossroads, because it's so that's
literally speaking, yes.
yeah, that's really great. Great. I'm a visual person, so I really can identify with the crossroads reference. So so thanks for that.
Cool.
Sure. I know you touched a little bit on your weight loss journey. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that before we move on? I just wanted to check with you.
Well, I mean, I could add a lot to it. It was just a whole other chapter in my life, which I'm grateful for going through. And that's a big thing for me too, is gratitude. Gratitude for everything. And my belief is that nothing is happening to me in life. Everything is happening for me. And I may not like it, but if I look at it from that perspective, that again creates options for me. And if I can look at it as, okay, this is happening for a reason. I believe everything happens for a reason. Not everybody believes that, but I do. And that helps me get through things. And so when something happens or I'm going through something difficult, say, okay, there's a reason for this. And I'm going to try and figure it out. I may not figure it out, but I'm going to do the best I can to work with it versus working against it. And so I reached a point with my horrible lifestyle, with my weight, where I knew I was killing myself. And it was just a very slow process, and I was just so beyond miserable. And I made a decision. It was a decision point that we all have these decision points in our lives where we can continue doing the same thing, but on the same path that's destructive, or we can get ourselves out of it. And I reached a point where I said, this is enough. I'm tired of being so sick above and beyond this condition that came on, no fault of my own. But everything else here, I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for what I'm putting in my mouth and what I'm drinking and who I'm talking to and how I'm relating to things. And I know that this weight is going to kill me, and it's going to burden the people that love me most. And I refuse to put myself or them through that. So I'm going to take responsibility for myself, and I'm going to get myself back to eating well. I'm going to slowly begin exercising again. I'm not going to overdo it. I'm going to, at the same time, I'm going to work on trying to manage my dystonia symptoms better. And when I made that decision to do that, my life changed. And within 10 months, I lost 150 pounds. So anyone out there who's struggling with weight or anything else like that, there is a way out. I promise you, there's a way out. If we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, which I was looking at your Instagram earlier, and you have that quote by Wayne Dyer on there. And I saw that and I went, that's so cool, because that's one of my favorite quotes ever. And that was a life-changing quote for me.
I got it from your article.
Heard that. Oh, you did?
I did.
Cool.
I did. I got it from your article.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. On my Instagram, I'm trying to, every so often, at least once or twice a week, I'm trying to add some quotes just to inspire people. And on Mondays, I have a general post about what are you grateful for, to give people a chance to just say what they're grateful for. And in preparing for our conversation, I was rereading the Don't Be Positive, Be Honest article. And I was like, oh, wait, this is a good quote and I should put it up tomorrow. So I did. I got that.
Funny. That's, yeah. I had no idea. That's so funny.
So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
That's another great quote that I like, which is right above that article, that paragraph you mentioned in that blog I wrote. It's from Nelson Mandela. It says, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. And a lot of us look at the challenges in our lives as enemies, as if it's outside of us. And it's not. It's within us. So if we learn to make peace with whatever is causing calamity in our lives, then we begin to work with it. And then we find a way to get through it. And that's what I strive to do every day with whatever challenge, is in my way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a great conversation. I love what you said, that everything happens for a reason. My dad always said that to us. So that was good to hear again, as a reminder.
Yeah, it's a tough one though, and a lot of people I know don't believe that and don't like that, and you can certainly pick out certain things that happen in life and go, well, what's the purpose of, and I don't want to really get into any specific things, but what's the purpose of this catastrophic, awful thing that happens to somebody? And I don't have the answer to that.
Right.
I don't know the answers to those, but I think that there's a learning in something that comes with it. And even if not, at least set yourself up for the possibility that might be the case, because that then sets us it sets us up for options, possibilities of something other than what's absolutely, killing us on the inside that we're grieving so much. Yeah. So I think looking at it that way, that's been a big thing for my life. So for me, it's been helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not for everyone though.
Well, I know my dad, he passed away actually in 1999. He had
Mm,
prostate cancer. And I remember growing up and having a disability and not knowing, uh, and I should say questioning, like, why was I born like this? Why this? Why me? As a kid,
mm,
missing out on a lot of things that other kids were doing, playing sports and just going places and things that I couldn't do physically. Um, and it's just, I always tried to remember that, everything happens for a reason. And it's like, okay, I'll figure out the reason for
mm,
this diagnosis in my life. I'll figure it out one day. And I
mhm,
feel like I have figured at least part of it out. And that is
mhm.
um, starting the OurView company and being able to share my story with others and help to bring awareness about disabilities, because
Mhm.
I mention it all the time that our stories as people with disability diagnosis, our stories are still uh, untold. Like there's still so much that people don't know about certain
Yeah.
disabilities and certain diagnoses like dystonia. I didn't, I may have met people that have had it, but I never understood what it was myself. So uh,
Mhm.
meeting you and talking to you and reading through your story and hearing you even talk today is very educational for me. So I'm sure you will definitely
Mm.
educate many more people who will hear this episode. So thank you again for your time for talking about this.
Yeah, my pleasure. I hope so because there are a lot of people like myself. I was really kind of one of the lucky ones in that it only took 8 to 10 months before I was able to get an initial diagnosis. And I know people that have gone decades without a diagnosis or a wrong diagnosis and treated incorrectly and made it worse, which actually happened to me early on too. Um, so I was really kind of lucky. So hopefully this brings more awareness because it's becoming. I'm seeing more and more. I'm in a minute one of the admins for an online support group on Facebook, and we've got between 9 and 10,000 members, I think, right now. And more people are joining every single day. And so there's a lot of people out there that are undiagnosed that are going through this, and it's hopefully we're becoming more educated now, and that's why we're seeing more people being diagnosed. I don't know, but there are more people out there that have yet to be diagnosed. So the numbers that they have regarding how many people have this are not that accurate. So I hope this helps some people who are out there. I actually have a video on YouTube. It's called "What is Dystonia and What Does It Feel Like?" And it goes through a description of what it is. It's only a 4-minute video. It goes through a description of what it is and also some examples of how it feels. Um, and a lot of people have looked at that and said, "Hey, that's what I'm going through, and that's what so and so I know is going through." So if anyone's listening and this sounds similar to what you may be experiencing, Google that or go to YouTube and check that out. Or you can Google that because I have an article and a blog that also has a descriptive, it's written out what it is and how it feels, and along with the video embedded in the article. So if anyone's listening and they're going through something that sounds like dystonia or another movement disorder, please check those things out.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for mentioning that. When we first started, in your introduction of yourself, you mentioned that you have a book coming out, but you mentioned it was your second book. So, could you tell us about your
Yeah.
first and your upcoming book that you have coming soon?
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. My first book I wrote, it was published in 2015. It's called Diagnosis Dystonia: Navigating the Journey, and it's all about what the condition is, and it speaks to all of the physical and emotional and social and vocational aspects of living with this condition. Because as anyone who has a health condition knows, not just your physical health is impacted. Every part of your life is impacted in some way, shape, or form. And so this book covers all of those things. So it goes through, stress and anxiety and how to manage all these things too, and pain, physical pain, emotional pain, grief, dealing with the public, and how do we get comfortable in an uncomfortable situation in our own bodies for one, and also when we're in public, if we are visually showing symptoms, or if we need to use certain assistive aids. And you know what that's like living with spina bifida. You know how that can be. And so it discusses basically, and that's why I call it navigating the journey, because it is a journey of a lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns, no pun intended, because that's sort of the symptoms of dystonia, are twists and turns, physical symptoms of that with the muscles, and how to get through the day, every single day of living with this, how to approach doctor's appointments effectively, how to get the most out of that. How to deal with all of the difficult, painful emotions that come with it. Basically, how to deal with the intense suffering of it. But even though the title is about, it says dystonia in the title, and a lot of the information is geared towards people with dystonia. It's really a book that's for anyone that's going through any kind of a difficult health situation, which is what really prompted my second book, which is called Beyond Pain and Suffering, Adapting to Adversity and Life Challenges. So what I did is I took some of the information from that book and I modified it to make it more general, to reach the broader audience for which the information in that current book ended up being. Because I had a lot of people that read that first book that did not have dystonia, who were either going through a health condition that was different, or they were just interested in reading it, and they did, and they found it to be very helpful for them. So they said, well, if you replace the word dystonia with whatever they're dealing with, this would be, this has been really helpful for me. So I thought, well, let me write a book here that goes much more in depth into what pain is, what suffering really is, and how to, and what adversity is, and what it really means, and what it really feels like, and how we can transcend that. And when I use the title Beyond Pain and Suffering, it's not about being without beyond pain and suffering. It's learning how to adapt to adversity and not make the most difficult parts of our lives the most significant parts of our lives. So you have spina bifida, I have dystonia, but that's not our entire life. We have a lot of other things that we're doing. A lot of it was prompted by our health condition, and it created opportunities for us in different ways. And so, but it's not our entire life. We have things outside of that. So how do we, so the book is filled with strategies for how we can learn to create a life while dealing with the challenges of a health condition, or the challenges of financial issues, work issues, relationship issues, raising children, unforeseen events that may occur that just pop up out of nowhere. Could be traumatic events that occur from a catastrophic hurricane or something. And I had that experience twice since I've lived where I live, and had to go through awful, stressful times. And it could just be, we all have days where everything hits the fan at once. It's just like nothing can go in our favor. It's kind of like you're being flicked in the head. Click, 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 over and over and over and over and over. And it gets to be overwhelming. So this is a kind of a self-help book for how to get through the challenges of life and adapting to the adversities that we go through. And we all face them in different ways. So it could be some major thing like a major health condition or a major traumatic event that completely changes the course of your life, or it could just be the daily rigors of the stress of living. And so I get into a lot of stress and anxiety and some of the same topics in the other book, but it's with new information, updated information, and things I've learned in the last 6 years since the publication of that book. So, and it targets a more broad audience. And it's for people that are living with actual physical pain, or living with even if without pain, but living with a difficult health condition. But for people that are just living with the challenges of life, because man, life's hard. Life can really,
it really
kick your butt
can be
sometimes. And you were saying before about we're talking about there's a reason for everything, and you had said how you're starting to kind of some of that questions being answered, and that I don't think is a question. I think that that answer comes to us throughout our entire lives. And it's not something that goes, oh, it happened because of this very reason right here.
Right.
I think it's a little bit at a time we learn here and there.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
New things happen. Oh, why did this happen? This happened. Oh, why this happened? And so that's what this book really kind of covers is adapting to the challenges of life that we face. And how do we embrace the fun times and joyful times? And how do we harness more of those? And how can we not deny, not mask, not run away from the difficult things and put this, kind of going back to the article about, don't feign or fake positivity, actually find things to be positive about and approach life in a different mindset so that you're living a genuine, authentic life, true to who you are and true to who you want to be and how you want to be in your life and with all the people in your lives. And that's really kind of what this book covers, with a lot of tools and strategies and coping mechanisms and ideas for and concepts for how to cope with the good and the bad in life, basically.
Yeah. Can you just let people know where they can find your first book, and when your second book is coming out, where will they be able to find that as well?
The first book is available on it's on Amazon. It's in Kindle and paperback. I also sell it on my website, which is tomseamancoaching.com. And that is also where all my other information is for the life coaching I do, and all the articles I've written and all the blogs. And I've got some videos and all sorts of other things on there. So a lot of resources for a lot of different physical and mental health challenges and just basic overall life, rather healthy living strategies. So tomseamancoaching.com. And then this new book will also be available on Amazon and also on that Tom Seaman Coaching website.
Oh, great.
So they'll both be available in those two different places.
Yeah. So everybody keep an eye out. I'll post a link to your first book and also to your website in the description of this podcast episode. And we'll definitely keep an eye out for when your second book comes out. So
cool. Thank you. It should be a couple of weeks.
Oh, great. Yeah. So to wrap up this episode, what is something that people misunderstand about your dystonia diagnosis or people with disabilities in general?
There's been a lot of misunderstanding about so many aspects of this, in that people don't really, I think, grasp what chronic means, because most people are used to getting something and having an expected period of recovery and then being okay and going on with their life. So when I first developed this, people thought, a month of treatment, couple months, boom, back to a normal life. And then when that didn't manifest, people kind of were confused by it, as was I. I kind of thought the same sort of a thing. And then 20 years later, because I've had this for 20 years now, 20 years later, I still have it. And I have people say, he still has that? Really? So even though they know it's chronic, it's just something that's not really understood. The thing about also just general disability is that a lot of people hear that and they have this picture in their mind of what a disabled person is. And it's different for everybody. And unfortunately, I think some people, we're visual creatures. When we see something, I'll give you an example, actually. So my mom had cancer, breast cancer, and you look at her, she looked as beautiful as she did the day before she was diagnosed, as the day she was diagnosed, looked as healthy as can be, diagnosed. I'm standing next to her and someone says, hey, you look wonderful. You must be all better now. And I said, well, I feel all this and that. And they didn't believe me. They didn't believe that I felt the way that I was describing how I was feeling. Yet they believed my mom because cancer was believable, because they understood and they knew what cancer was. And they knew that the test proved it and the treatment she was getting thereafter were real, versus me, who was just kind of looking like I was doing better because my symptoms improved so much from all the things that I've been doing. But they didn't believe that I was experiencing pain, muscle contractions, imbalance walking, dizziness, all sorts of other things I was going through. People didn't believe me because they didn't understand it. So there's a lack of awareness about a lot of different conditions. So that's been probably one of the frustrating things for me, is not that I really care if people believe me or not, but it's just like, well, why wouldn't you believe that I have this and I'm going through this, but it's easy to believe something else? It's because they know what that is. They don't know what this is. So there's so many different disabilities out there, or not even disabilities. There's just a lot of conditions people are living with that if you don't know about it, you kind of, brush it aside as if it's not a real thing. The other thing also is that people that are living with the health condition, they forget about the abilities that they have versus everything that they, can't do. And this is also for people that are living with the condition, is the focus is always on, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. Well, what can you do? What can you focus on that you still can do versus going in the other direction?
Truly appreciate that answer, especially the last part, because one of my goals and my missions with the podcast and with the OurView company is to change the tone of conversation, how people see those who have disabilities, and how, as you mentioned, how people with disabilities see themselves. Instead of focusing on the I can't walk, I can't see, I can't hear. It's like, what are you able to do? Because you are still able to have some type of impact on the people around you in your, in your inner circle, in your community, in your neighborhood, your state, the world around you. You're still able to have a great sphere of impact on the people around you based on the things you are able to do, and to change the tone of conversation about how those outside of the disabled community see those with disabilities, and not just as, oh, that's Arthur, he uses a wheelchair. It's, it's Arthur and he does all these cool and fun things and great things. So I truly am grateful for that answer there, because that really is really what I'm all about here, and just trying to give a new perspective and have people see those who have disabilities as as people who are active in their communities. And just I love the difference you gave between your condition and your mom's, with people having a better understanding of what cancer is and what it means, and the effects of the treatment that she had to go through, but not really understanding what your condition was. And because you looked a certain way, it was like, oh, you must be better. So but you're still inside, you're physically still dealing with so much. So so that was a good great answer, and a great way to wrap up this episode of the podcast.
Cool.
So
good.
Yeah. So thank you so much again for your time here, Tom. And everybody just go to the Amazon link. Like I said, it'll be provided in the description here on the podcast episode, and to Tom's website as well, and see all the great things that he is doing. Read all of his articles that he has written. They are great, and you will definitely be enlightened and educated, and you may find some good quotes like I did that you'll be able to share with on your social media sites. So it's all just it's all great information, and I really appreciate your time today, and I really learned a lot here during this conversation. I learned a lot myself. So thank you again for your time, and I'll be in touch with you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. It was really great to meet you.
Oh, great. It was great to meet you as well. And have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Take care.
Right. Thank you. You too.